Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at tech.
Hmm.
And, not in like a super technical way,
Yeah.
but we're going to be focusing on like the vocabulary and the trends, the kind of stuff that you can actually use in conversations.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like being able to talk the talk when it comes to all things tech, you know?
Exactly. So our source for this is a YouTube channel called Tech Talk. It's hosted by Marco and Erica. And they do such a great job of making tech accessible to everyone.
Yeah, they really do. It's like they've created this perfect cheat sheet for anyone who wants to, sound like they know what they're talking about when it comes to all those gadgets and gizmos.
Exactly. So get ready to impress all your friends
Hmm.
with your newfound tech knowledge. Where do we even begin with all this tech, though?
Well, Marco and Erica actually start with this core list of 10 gadgets. But for this deep dive, we're going to focus on just a few that are, absolutely essential in today's world.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
So let's start with smartwatches. You've probably seen them everywhere, right? But Marco and Erica highlight how they've become so much more than just a way to tell time. It's almost like having a personal assistant right there on your wrist.
It's pretty crazy how they've evolved, right? I mean, think about it. You can track your fitness check messages, even pay for things, without ever taking your phone out of your pocket. It's pretty amazing how they've just become part of our daily routine.
It's true. And speaking of things we can't seem to live without, let's talk about smartphones. I mean,
Yeah.
can you imagine leaving your phone at home? It's like that feeling of anxiety, like you've lost a limb or
Oh,
something.
absolutely. It's almost like they've become an extension of ourselves, right?
Right.
But Marco and Erica point out that there's a positive side to that, too. It's not just about dependence. It's also about how powerful these devices have become for communication and information.
It's true. They allow us to connect with people all over the world, access information instantly, and even express ourselves in new ways
Yeah.
that we never could before. It's pretty amazing when you think about it. And actually, they even talk about how smartphones are driving some of the biggest tech trends,
Yeah.
which we'll definitely get to later.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be interesting. But before we go there, I want to go back to the smartwatch for a second, because there's one specific feature that I found really fascinating, and that's the heart rate monitoring.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like having a little health coach right there on your wrist, providing real-time feedback and helping you make healthier choices. I mean, what do you think about this whole trend of gadgets becoming more health-focused?
I think it's a good thing,
Right.
as we become more aware of preventative health care. I mean, imagine a world where your smartwatch could detect early signs of health issues.
Whoa, that's a bit scary, but also pretty cool.
Right. It would be like having an early warning system right there
Mhm.
on your wrist.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about some pretty cool gadgets, but now let's talk about the language used to describe all these amazing features. And Marco and Erica really break down those techie buzzwords in a way that makes them so easy to understand.
Yeah, one of the key terms they focus on is user-friendly, which
Yeah.
is so important these days. I mean, who wants to struggle with their tech? Nobody, right?
Absolutely. It needs to be intuitive and easy to navigate, no matter what your tech skills are. I mean, who has
And-
time to read a 200-page manual these days?
Exactly. And they explain why it's so important. They talk about how good design can reduce frustration, save time, and even make technology accessible to people who might be a little intimidated by it.
It's like they're saying it's not just about making things look pretty, it's about creating a positive user experience. And that's something we can all get behind, right?
Absolutely.
And speaking of creating a positive experience, let's talk about high resolution. Marco and Erica talk about how important this is for screens and images. It's all about clarity and detail.
Yeah, and they connect it to the bigger picture, too. They explain how it can enhance everything from watching movies to editing photos to even working on those complex design projects. It's all about creating that richer, more immersive visual experience.
It's amazing how these seemingly small details can have such a huge impact on how we interact with technology.
For sure. And they also talk about other features like wireless connectivity, Bluetooth voice activation, touch screens, password protection, all those essential things. And what's really cool is that they weave these features into real-life scenarios, which we'll actually be exploring in the next part of our deep dive.
Yes, get ready to eavesdrop on some typical tech conversations. And we're going to be looking at how these terms are actually used in the real world. And we'll even get into some practical tips on how to troubleshoot those frustrating tech problems that we all encounter from time to time. Like when your Wi-Fi decides to stop working for no reason?
Oh, yeah. We've all been there.
Stay tuned for that. But before we go, I'm curious, what stands out to you so far about the world of tech gadgets? Are there any features you find particularly interesting? We'd love to hear your thoughts.
It's funny how much we take for granted these days, right? Like wireless connectivity and Bluetooth. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that we were all tangled up in wires and cables everywhere.
Oh, yeah. I remember those days.
Yeah.
Trying to untangle my headphones before listening to music was like a workout in itself.
Right. And now it's just like magic.
Eh.
Everything connects wirelessly. It's all about convenience and freedom, you know? But anyway, let's get back to Marco and Erica's tech talk, because they do a great job of showing how these features are used in real life situations, not just like in a tech specs kind of way.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the scenes they actually act out is like that classic situation of upgrading your smartphone. You walk into the store,
Yeah.
you're excited to get a new phone, but then you're also like bombarded with all this jargon and specs. It can be so overwhelming.
Oh, totally. And then you meet that sales rep who's like armed with all the latest tech knowledge, and they're ready to guide you through the process. But what I like about Marco and Erica's approach is that they don't just present like a one-size-fits-all solution. They actually acknowledge that the best phone for you depends on your individual needs and how you plan to use it.
Exactly. They encourage you to think about what features are most important to you. Is it battery life, camera quality, storage space?
Yeah.
What are your priorities?
And what I love is how they empower you to ask the right questions. Instead of just nodding along and pretending to understand all the tech specs, you can actually confidently express your needs and find a phone that really fits your lifestyle.
It's like they're giving you a script.
Yeah.
For that conversation, that can be super awkward sometimes. Yeah. And it makes you feel more confident and in control.
Totally. And speaking of feeling in control, they also tackle another universal experience, which is tech troubleshooting. We've all been there,
Oh.
staring at our devices in frustration, wondering why they suddenly decided to stop working.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It's like they know when you need them the most, and then they just decide to crash or freeze or whatever. It's so frustrating.
But the great thing about Tech Talk is that they offer these practical tips and strategies for dealing with those common tech headaches. They don't just tell you what the problems are. They actually empower you to take action.
Yeah, exactly. Like, for example, if your phone's battery is draining too quickly, they suggest checking which apps are using the most power and then adjusting your settings accordingly. Or like if your device is running slow, they advise clearing the cache and closing any unnecessary apps that are running in the background. It's all about those little tweaks that can make a huge difference.
Right. It's like they're reminding us that we actually have some control over these devices. We're not just helpless victims of technology.
Yeah, exactly. And I appreciate that they approach troubleshooting with a sense of humor, too. It's like they're saying, it's okay to get frustrated, but don't worry, there's usually a solution out there. They even role-play some common troubleshooting scenarios, like what to do if your Wi-Fi isn't working, or how to restart your device when it freezes. It's like having tech support right there in your pocket.
It's so true. But what about those times when the simple fixes don't work? What if you're facing something more complex?
Well, that's where their advice to stay calm comes in really handy, They emphasize that it's so important to take a deep breath and approach the problem systematically.
Yeah. Don't panic. Just try to think it through step by step.
Exactly. They even suggest reaching out to the device manufacturer's customer support or asking a tech-savvy friend or family member for help. Sometimes a fresh perspective can make all the difference,
Yeah. Sometimes you just need someone to talk you through it, just to help you see things more clearly.
Absolutely. And I think their emphasis on staying calm is so important because it's so easy to get overwhelmed when technology isn't working the way it's supposed to. But remembering to take a step back and approach the problem logically can save you a lot of stress and frustration. It's so true. Okay, so we've covered gadgets, features, and even troubleshooting. But now I'm really excited to dive into the future of tech, to explore those buzzwords that everyone's talking about, like artificial intelligence and 5G networks.
Oh, yeah. Get ready for AI, 5G, the Internet of Things, cloud computing, augmented reality. Marco and Erica do such a great job of breaking it all down, explaining how these technologies are going to revolutionize the way we live and work.
It's like they're taking us on a journey into the future, It's exciting and a little bit mind-blowing at the same time. It really makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like with all this amazing tech that we have now, what's next? What's going to be the next big thing? What's going to blow our minds in a few years?
That's what I love about Marco and Erica. They don't just talk about what's happening now. They actually try to look ahead, into the future and see what's coming. They're not afraid to speculate a little bit.
Yeah, so one of the first things they talk about is artificial intelligence, or AI, as most people call it. It sounds kind of scary when you first hear it, but they do a good job of explaining it in simple terms. Right. They talk about how AI is basically about machines learning,
Yeah.
like teaching machines to think like humans so they can solve problems, make decisions, and even translate languages.
And it's not just some futuristic fantasy. It's already happening all around us.
Mhm.
Think about Siri or Alexa, those virtual assistants that we use every day, or even those personalized recommendations that you get on Spotify or Netflix. That's all AI.
Yeah, it's pretty wild when you think about it. Like, AI is already working behind the scenes, making our lives easier and more efficient in so many ways. And who knows what it'll be capable of in a few years? It's
Yeah.
kind of exciting and a little bit scary at the same
I
time.
know, right? Okay, so AI is like this silent force
Right.
working in the background. But then you've got 5G networks, which are going to be much more noticeable, I think.
Oh, yeah, for sure. 5G is going to be a game changer. They talk about how it's going to be so much faster than 4G. Like lightning fast download speeds, no more buffering or lag when you're watching videos. It's going to be amazing.
So can they say it's going to be like upgrading from a dirt road to a superhighway for your data?
Exactly. And with 5G becoming more and more available, who knows what kind of new innovations we'll see? I mean, the possibilities are pretty much endless.
It's going to be wild. Okay, so we've got AI, we've got 5G, but then they bring up the Internet of Things, which is where things start to get really futuristic.
Oh, yeah, the Internet of Things, or IoT as the cool kids call it. This is where everyday objects become smart. They're connected to the internet, so they can communicate with each other and with us. It's like that sci-fi movie where your refrigerator orders groceries for you.
I know, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy to think about. Like, imagine your house adjusting the temperature automatically based on your preferences, or your car alerting you to traffic jams before they even happen. It's going to change everything.
But of course, with all this connectivity comes the question of security. How do we make sure that our data is safe
Right.
and that all these smart devices aren't going to turn against us one day?
Yeah, that's a good point. And it's something that Marco and Erica address. They talk about the importance of having really strong security measures and how companies need to be constantly innovating to stay ahead of hackers and cybercriminals.
Right? And they also emphasize the importance of being responsible, being aware of what information we're sharing online and taking steps to protect our privacy. It's a good reminder that technology is a tool, and it's up to us to use it wisely.
For sure. It's like they're saying, with great power comes great responsibility.
Exactly. And, another thing they talk about is sustainability, which is becoming more and more important as technology advances.
Yeah. We can't just ignore the environmental impact of all these gadgets and devices.
Mm.
You know, we need to think about the resources that are used to make them, the energy they consume, and what happens to them when we're done with them.
Yeah. They encourage us to make conscious choices. To choose eco-friendly options whenever possible, and to support companies that are committed to sustainability.
Right? And it's not just about feeling good. It's about making sure that we're not destroying the planet in the process of innovating,
Right.
which is a pretty important thing to consider.
Absolutely. And the cool thing is, there are already so many companies out there that are working on developing sustainable technologies, like biodegradable smartphones and solar-powered charging stations. It's pretty inspiring.
Yeah. Gives you hope that we can actually create a future where technology and sustainability go hand in hand.
For sure. So as we wrap up this deep dive into tech talk, I'm curious to know, what are your biggest takeaways? What are you most excited about? And what are you maybe a little bit worried about?
That's a good question. I think for me, the biggest takeaway is just how fast everything is changing.
Yeah.
It's kind of overwhelming, but also really exciting to think about all the possibilities.
Yeah, I agree. It's a wild ride, but at least we have resources like Tech Talk to help us navigate it all, to help us understand what's happening and what it all means, and to make sure we're not left behind.
Exactly. It's like they're saying, don't be afraid to embrace the future, but do it with your eyes wide open and keep learning and exploring along the way. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of tech. We hope you learned something new and that you're feeling a little bit more tech savvy now. And remember, the future is what we make it. So let's make it a good one.